Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
UKIP's MEPs are holding an emergency meeting in Brussels today, where they'll be talking about the ongoing row over the party's only MP, Douglas Carswell. He defected from the Conservatives 3 years ago, but this week, former leader Nigel Farage has accused him of working against UKIP ever since the general election. Well, we couldn't get hold of any of the MEPs this morning, probably because they're all in that meeting. But we're joined now from Cardiff by the party's leader in Wales, Neil Hamilton. Neil Hamilton, welcome to the Daily Politics. So, UKIP MEPs are reportedly meeting today. Will they be discussing whether the party is in crisis?
Well, I haven't a clue because I'm not an MEP, but, you know, this is a wholly confected crisis, if it is one. I thought when Nigel Farage gave up the leadership, he was going to get his life back. Well, we haven't seen very much of that, have we? The idea that Douglas Carswell has been working against UKIP since the general election is preposterous. This is a grudge match which Nigel's had against Douglas for a very long time. Douglas is an independently minded chap, and grown-up political parties should be able to cope with personal differences. Right,
you say it's a grudge match, but Nigel Farage has made a case against Douglas Carswell with examples of where he says he's been undermined by him. Do you think that case just doesn't stack up?
Well, he could probably make the same case against me, couldn't he? Because Douglas and I have both had differences of opinion with Nigel. The idea that Douglas Carswell doesn't agree with UKIP's policy on immigration is absurd and disproved by the reality and the facts. Douglas's only argument with Nigel over that has been on the tone of the debate. And you know, he pays your money, takes your choice. It's all a matter of taste. And I'm afraid that what we're seeing here is a personality clash. And Nigel always saw UKIP as a kind of personality cult rather than as a political party. Now that he's no longer the leader, I think it's outrageous that he should seek to destabilise the nascent leadership of his successor, Paul Nuttall, in this way.
Right.
If you've got differences of this kind, you should keep them within the bounds of the party and not publish them in national newspapers as a direct challenge, in effect, to the leadership.
According to Nigel Farage, though, Douglas Carswell has openly admitted that he wanted to neutralise both UKIP and Mr Farage in the referendum campaign. If that's the case, is it really acceptable for him to behave like that, given he's UKIP's only MP?
Well, the reality was that Nigel Farage was never going to, or any organisation he was involved in, was never going to get the official designation for the no campaign in the referendum, because nobody else in other parties would work with Nigel. Whether that's fair or not is another matter.
But shouldn't Douglas Carswell have joined the Leave.eu campaign? But shouldn't he have joined the Leave.eu campaign rather than going with the mainstream Vote Leave?
Well, Douglas took the view that in order to fight the referendum campaign, we needed the broadest possible base of support across the political spectrum, and that was obvious, I think, to even the meanest intellect. And that's exactly what happened. That's why Vote Leave got the designation. I mean, Leave.eu and Nigel played a massive part in getting the referendum result that we got. But I don't believe that we could have had an effective no campaign if Leave.eu had got the designation, because so many other people wouldn't work with them. That's the reality.
But what about the email trail in terms of the knighthood or the peerage that Nigel Farage is supposedly wanting and had asked for Douglas Carswell to bid on his behalf? Does the email trail not show that he did everything, Douglas Carswell, to stop that happening?
No, it's not a peerage for Nigel Farage that we want. It's peerages for UKIP. You know, we got 4 million votes in the last general election and only got one MP elected. You know, last night in the House of Lords, you had 100 Liberal peers voting against the government and against Brexit.
But wouldn't he be a good contender, Nigel Farage, as the former leader of the party?
So the House of Lords is a hugely... No, yeah, of course, Nigel would be top of the list, but it mustn't be seen in these personality terms. It's UKIP as a political party that deserves these peerages, and yes, I would say Nigel deserves a peerage. In fact, I've said he should get a dukedom for the role that he's played in getting us out of the EU as the most important ingredient in the long-term campaign to achieve this result.
Right.
But I think all this pettifogging nonsense about a meaningless bauble like a knighthood is just making him look ridiculous.
Right. What about the NEC? Because it's the ruling executive that will make the decision about Douglas Carswell's future. What do you think they'll do? Because Douglas Carswell probably has enemies on the NEC. It's not just Nigel Farage he disagrees with.
Yeah, I mean, the issue is, did Douglas try to stop UKIP getting peerages that it deserves? And the answer to that is unambiguously no, in my view. I know Douglas well enough to be able to say that with confidence. So I'm not expecting there to be any repercussions for Douglas from the NEC. I don't know, obviously, what evidence, so-called, is going to be put in against him, but we'll see.
Neil Hamilton, thank you very much. So the decision over Douglas Carswell's future lies with the party's National Executive Committee, as I've said, and we're joined by a member of it, Liz Jones, right now. So are there disciplinary proceedings underway for Douglas Carswell?
Not that I'm aware of as yet, no. And we have to take a very pragmatic approach with regard to the difficulties between Nigel and Douglas, because in May of this year, there are going to be the local council elections, and our focus must be upon presenting unity, good local policies, strong candidates and a solid foundation so that the public will vote for UKIP again.
Who do you blame then for this grudge match, to use Neil Hamilton's words, this sort of battle between these two men? I
don't blame anyone. Both of them have clearly fallen out. I'm not in the blame game. I'm about pragmatism and trying to achieve electoral success.
But the UKIP chairman, Paul Oakton, has had a meeting with Douglas Carswell. Was that because Nigel Farage called for him to be expelled from the party?
It may well have been. I don't know. I wasn't privy to that meeting. But I take the frank view that this all stemmed from 2015 spat over the short money when, as you're aware, Douglas Carswell was elected for the second time as a UKIP MP, and he was entitled to receive about £600,000 worth of short money. Then an approach was made by the UKIP management at that time to get that money in order to employ 15 people. Douglas said no, and then Nigel, very cleverly I thought, called his bluff and said, OK, we won't take 1 penny of the taxpayers' money. And then a compromise was reached. So I think from that point onward, there has been difficulty in their relationship. And that's going to be an ongoing situation.
I've just heard that Aaron Banks, the UKIP donor, although I'm not sure he's given much money recently, is called to the next meeting of the NEC. Why?
He's being allowed to attend the next NEC meeting because he wants to make a financial and management pitch to the party as to his future proposals for the party.
He said he's going to stand against Douglas Carswell in 2020, so that would seem a fairly hostile act.
Oh, I think it's just puff and hot air. It's drama. It's just drama. I wouldn't give it much weight. But what Douglas needs to do, he needs to be in place. He needs to be focusing on the May local elections because in Tendring District Council, where he is based, we have over 20 UKIP councillors.
So is Aaron Banks bidding to be chairman?
He may well be. I think that's his aim. He would like to be chairman, and he's going to come and pitch to us his management strategy and his financial strategy for the future of the party.
Right. Is Douglas Carswell still an asset to the party?
I would say, as I said earlier, I'm entirely a pragmatist.
But is he an asset to the party, in your view?
In my view, he is an asset until we find out what the results are of the local elections in May 2017. As I said earlier, in his area, in Tendring, there are over 20 UKIP councillors. I would hope that we will improve on those numbers and improve generally throughout Essex.
So it's a test. I mean, it's a test always for all politicians. Is he going to be invited to this meeting of the NEC?
Yes, he's going to be invited.
Where Aaron Banks is going, Douglas Carswell?
Yes.
Oh, right. So they're all going to be at this meeting?
Yeah, I think he should be there to hear what Aaron says.
Right. You're going to invite him, are you?
Well, he should be there. He's our parliamentary representative. He's entitled to come along.
Was it a sort of sign of betrayal when Douglas Carswell joined Vote Leave, the official campaign to leave the EU, rather than Leave.eu?
Well, from what I remember, casting back through my memory, I understand that Vote Leave was actually the first launched body, because I remember they set up a huge telephone call centre in Westminster. So they started first. Then you had Aaron Banks started with In the Know.
Sure.
Then that became Grassroots Out. Then that became Leave.eu.
I mean, I know the history,
yeah,
but,
for sure.
you know, was it a betrayal of Douglas Carswell to join Vote Leave rather than Leave.eu?
Well, it's his choice. I wouldn't say it's a betrayal.
I know that, but how was it viewed in the party?
Well, as I say, I take an entirely pragmatic choice and view of things. I just wanted a Brexit vote, which we had, and Douglas Carswell could have joined the moon if that ensured that we got a Brexit vote. I don't really care where he pitched up.
Right.
If Vote Leave did what they could in their areas, and Leave.eu did what they could in their areas, and we achieved Brexit, that's good enough for me.
Just finally, I mean, you talked about the May elections, and if you look at UKIP's recent performance, you called Stoke the Brexit capital of the UK, and your vote only went up by 2%. Labour still had a majority of over 2,500. I mean, it's true, if UKIP can only achieve a 2% swing, you won't win any seats in 2020, will you?
I can't possibly comment. I don't know.
Well,
I cannot
you
read
can't.
the future. No, I cannot read the future. We don't know what's going to happen. Much will depend on our results in May in the local elections.
Liz Jones,
and there we are.
Thank you very much.
I've been getting away with it all.